Hello, and welcome to the first week of online learning with math. Now, here's what's going to happen for the rest of the quarter. We have to cover new stuff. This is our IB class. If we don't cover the stuff that we are in the next few weeks, we're going to be really behind next year. So I want to make sure that everybody really focuses on understanding what's going on this quarter and make sure you ask questions. So let's go ahead and get started with our first section of week 1. Okay, week 1, section 1. We are going to take this first part to review what we did about quadratics before spring break. So this may seem like something that you are very, very confident with, so perfect, but we need to go over the stuff as well. So remember, a quadratic equation will be something that looks like this. Ax squared plus bx plus c. And this notation means that the variables a, b, and c are in the set of real numbers. They can be anything. And in order to be a quadratic, a cannot equal 0, because otherwise it's linear then, which we talked about before spring break. Now, in order for it to be a function, we talked about this. Instead of y, we can write f of x, or that f can be any letter, h, g, anything. It's generally f of x, but f of x and y are the exact same thing. This is what a quadratic function looks like. When we graph it, here's our x and y axis here. And this is one of our graphs. It's a parabola. And this point right here, that is called the vertex. This is very, very important, the vertex. It is the max, the maximum, or the minimum of a parabola. Because the parabola could look like this. It could be upside down, in which case that point is a maximum, which is also the vertex. Now, to find the vertex, that is a coordinate, x comma y. And to find the x value, we take the opposite of b and divide it by 2 times a. So we'll get a value. Maybe the value is 10. And then to find the y value, all we do is substitute that into our function, whatever that value may be. And that's going to be our vertex. This is really, really important for graphing. Now, when looking at our equation, y or f of x, if a is positive, that means our equation or a parabola, the vertex will be a minimum. And then the exact opposite. If a is negative, then the vertex will be a maximum. That's really, really important because if you find the vertex or if you're graphing it and it's opposite of what you notice with this information, that's one of those quick checks. So that way you can fix your mistake. Now, we talked about important info of a quadratic. We'll rewrite that. So our key features one was our vertex, which we just talked about how to find. Another one will be our y-intercept, which we all know is going to be 0, a number. Another one is our zeros, also known as our x-intercepts, which that will be written as number, comma, 0. There could be 1 0, there could be 2, there could be none. Just kind of depends on the graph, so make sure you're okay with finding that. And then our axis of symmetry. Now, what's really, really important about the axis of symmetry is that it goes through the vertex. And what's really important about the axis of symmetry is usually with our parabolas, the axis is a vertical line. And a vertical line, the equation will be x equals a number. And horizontal will be y equals a number. Just kind of depends. Okay, so we're going to try an example with this. Just one. F of x equals negative x squared plus 2x minus 1. Okay, so in the assignment for this first section, you're going to be asked to find the vertex, the y-intercept, the zeros, the axis of symmetry, and whether it's a maximum or a minimum. So let's go ahead and find that. So, our vertex. Think back to how we find our vertex. To find the x value of that, we take opposite b divided by 2a. Just substitute the values and simplify. B value is 2, so we take the opposite of that. Divide it by 2 times a, which is negative 1. And we simplify. So our x value of our vertex is 1. To find the y value, we substitute the value that we just got into our equation. F of 1, or y equals and we substitute. 1 squared is 1, with that negative out in front, plus 2 minus 1, which equals 0. So the vertex is 1, 0. Now, next question. Is this going to have a maximum or a minimum? Since a is negative, we are going to have a maximum. So that answers 2 questions right off the bat. 1, 0 is going to be the max. So depending on the type of question we're looking at, just kind of depends on what goes on from there. Okay. Gonna erase all this, because next we have to find our y-intercept. Now, our y-intercept is always written as 0, a number. We need to find that. So, since we know our x value is 0, we're just going to substitute that. Now, after figuring all this out, we get 0 plus 0 minus 1. So if x is 0, our y value is negative 1, and that is our y-intercept right there. Pretty straightforward. Another thing you can do is just kind of know -1 here, that is the y-intercept. Because with the other ones having x's with them, multiplying it by 0 is going to get rid of them. Okay. Next, we get to find the zeros, which is the same thing as saying our x-intercept. Let me erase all this. So, we could have 1, 0, 2, or none. So it just kind of depends. All of our zeros are going to have a number, comma, 0. Since that value is y, we're going to substitute 0 for y. Basically, setting our equation equal to 0. Now, there are two ways to solve this. This is a quadratic. You can either factor if possible, or you're going to have to use the quadratic equation. Let's see if this factors. I don't like dealing with a -1 in the first part, so I'm going to factor that out. Factor out a -1, which is just going to change all the signs. Now to factor, the two values I pick that go here and here have to multiply to be 1, but add to be -2. This is possible with the numbers -1 and -1. Okay, then we set each part of this factored equation equal to 0, including the GCF here. All three parts. Well, this first one doesn't make sense at all. So just cross that off. Don't worry about it. And the next two both give us the same answer when we solve them. So really, it doesn't matter how many ones we see. We only need to write it once. So this means that there is only one 0. And that's that value right there that we're going to write. If you're not sure if it factors, that doesn't mean there's not an answer. Use the quadratic formula. Okay, and the last thing we have to look at for this is looking at the axis of symmetry. Now, if you try to graph this equation, it's going to look something like this. Where that point right there that I have filled in is the vertex. So when creating the line of symmetry, we know that that line goes straight through the vertex. Now, that means the axis of symmetry is vertical, so we know it's going to be x equals a number. Now, our vertex was 1, 0, meaning our axis of symmetry is going to be x equals 1. And that's all you have to do for that review question.